Welcome back in one of the Bears Profit Plays YouTube channel. Today is Saturday, September 28th. We have a lot of football to talk about for this Saturday afternoon. We have a total of 10 game picks. I'm going to be breaking down for you guys. I'm going to have 4 top 25 matchups. I guess we can call them the big games for tomorrow. And then I have 6 other plays that I think are going to be very easy cash for us later in the show. We're going to talk about those 4 big game picks first. And I'm going to give you guys 3 best player props of the day. And then we're going to talk about those other 6 games towards the end of the video. 13 total plays today. Hope everybody enjoys their Saturday, and let's break down some bowl. All right, guys, here's a recap graphic from Friday night. I am recording at the halftime of Washington and Rutgers. Jonah Coleman has already hit. I think he has 80 rushing yards in the game right now, but Rutgers up 14-3 somehow, some way. 7-3. Washington missed a field goal. Rutgers go all the way down the field. Washington blocks a kick, but a legal substitution takes that away. Rutgers scores on the first play. It is 14-3 at half. We have Rutgers minus 1.5 against Washington, up 14-3, looking pretty good. Al Monagai over 101.5 rushing yards. He's looking pretty good right now. I think he's at 60-something for Rutgers. Ripped off a pretty big run right before the half. So everything's looking okay right now. Here's the updated leaderboard. 1-0 on the prop picks so far. 14-4 over the last 7. We got to keep on keeping on going into Saturday. We're going to start with a top 25 matchup. Oklahoma State going on the road to take on Kansas State. Oklahoma State coming into this game with a 3-1 record. Kansas State also coming into this game with a 3-1 record. The winner of this game will continue to have Big 12 title hopes. The loser of this game says goodbye to the Big 12 title. They say goodbye to the playoffs. Both these teams coming off their first loss of the season. Oklahoma State against Utah at home. Kansas State got dominated on the road against BYU. I'm going to take K-State in this game. This was my team to win the Big 12 this season, so I'm going to stick with them to find a way to win this game. OK State defensively, they got a ton of problems. I don't love their quarterback either, Bowman. He hasn't wowed me this season. You might think to yourself, Kansas State getting dominated by BYU means that they're not a very good team, but Kansas State just made so many mistakes, especially right before the half of that game. We had BYU in that game. We had BYU on the money line as well. It's just a tough place to play on the road, and whenever you make mistakes, it's very tough to win on the road. Avery Johnson, the quarterback for K-State, he's very one-dimensional. Whenever they get down, it's very hard for them to push the ball down the field. He loves to run the ball first. In this game, OK State, they've been giving up a lot of rushing yards per game. I think K-State wins this one pretty comfortably up front. And I do think whenever you don't make Johnson throw the ball down the field, Kansas State can find a way to gain control of this one and battle it out against Oklahoma State up front. They're going to win this game in the trenches. I'll take K-State to win this game 31-23. I do expect them to dominate, and then OK State getting a couple late touchdowns like we saw last week. At K-State here, -5 as the first play. For the next play, we have another top 25 matchup. Louisville going on the road to face off against Notre Dame. Louisville, they're undefeated this season. They're ranked inside the top 15. They've looked really good to start the season. Their new quarterback, Tyler, he's from Texas Tech last season. He looks pretty good this season so far. But the problem that I have with this is that the number, it doesn't make any sense. Why is Notre Dame laying a touchdown with the way that they've been playing over the last couple of games? Notre Dame, they've not looked good. They're not a good football team, I don't think. They lost to NIU a couple games ago. Then Buffalo beat NIU in that last weekend MAC conference battle. Louisville's been impressive in all their wins this season. They look very good on the offensive side of the ball. It almost feels like Louisville should be the touchdown favorite, but I understand it's on the road. They should probably be closer to a pick 'em if I'm going to set the line here, but this line doesn't make any sense. Notre Dame should not be the favorite. Also, Notre Dame, they can't throw the ball. I don't know what is wrong with Riley Leonard this season. He really didn't throw the ball too much at Duke, but at least he did throw the ball a little bit. This season, it feels like they don't throw the ball at all. I do think Notre Dame's a really good defensive team. I don't know if Notre Dame can push the ball down the field with the passing game. I guess they can control it on the ground with the running game, but I'd feel a lot more confident if this was like a money line kind of play for Notre Dame and I didn't have to lay the points, but I'm going to lay the points in this one. Sometimes things, you just don't make sense on these lines, and you got to take the opposite side, hope for the best. This is not a game that I'd recommend betting on, even though it is a top 25 battle. I wanted to break it down because it is a top 25 battle, but I'm most likely just going to put a half a unit on this one, but everything is telling you to take Louisville +7 because they've looked so much better than Notre Dame, but there's just no reason Notre Dame should be -6.5. I'm sure Louisville's going to be the heavy public favorite. Getting that touchdown as the better team, it makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm going to plug my nose here, take Notre Dame -6.5 as the play there. For the next game, we're going to be looking at Illinois going up against Penn State. This is one I'm pretty confident in. I really like what I saw in Illinois in that game against Nebraska last week. Nebraska, they had all the opportunities in the world to crush Illinois late in that game. They just could never capitalize on any of them. I felt like Illinois was just destined to win that game, and also Nebraska, you know their history. But Illinois, they never gave up. They fought the entire game. Even though they knew they had Penn State on deck, they did not take Nebraska lightly. They found a way to win that game. Give me them +18 here. Luke Altmaier, their quarterback, he's looked really good this season. Illinois does have a lot of weapons offensively, and I think they can make this a game against Penn State. The offense this season, they've averaged nearly 400 yards per game. They're really good offensively running the ball. every game, and the defense has been good as well, especially whenever they need stops late in the game. We saw that against Nebraska. Illinois has also played a pretty good schedule over the first 4 games this season. We're not counting the first game because it's a warm-up game. They played Kansas, then they played Central Michigan, then they played Nebraska on the road. A ranked matchup, top 25 against Kansas, beat them. Ranked matchup against Nebraska, top 25, they beat them. This is going to be the whiteout game for Penn State. Yeah, sure, that's worth a couple points, but it's definitely not worth 18 points. I do think Illinois can give this team a run for their money. History has proven also with Penn State, whenever they play ranked games, they typically kind of shit down their leg. They panic a little bit. The offense typically doesn't have a very good day. They have to rely on the defense. I do think that Penn State defense is one of the best in the country, but Illinois has been frisky this season. I think they're a good team. I think they keep this close. 28-20, final score, Penn State on whiteout night. They find a way to win, but I'm going to take the points plus 18 as the play there. And for the last play on these graphic plays, we're looking at the biggest matchup of the season maybe. Alabama going up against Georgia. I'm taking Alabama to win this game outright, so I'm going to take them plus 1.5 as the play. The first match between these two teams, 1895 in Columbus, Georgia, and Georgia took that game 30-6. This game's going to be played in Alabama, and Alabama at home, whether it's Birmingham, Montgomery, or Tuscaloosa, where they've played for the last 60-plus years in Tuscaloosa. Alabama typically does not lose football games whenever they play in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. The last time that they lost at home was in 2007. And to be fair to Georgia, they've only played in Tuscaloosa one time. That was in 2020. But Alabama has dominated this series since 2008, winning every game but one, and that was the national championship game in 2022. Alabama's won 8 of the last 9 matches between Georgia, and while that's very impressive, one thing extremely different is Alabama doesn't have Nick Saban. So I gave you those numbers because I know how good Nick Saban was as a head coach. I'm not taking Alabama because of the past that we've seen from these stats. I'm taking Alabama because Georgia this season has not impressed me, and that rarely happens with a Georgia team led by Kirby Smart. This team simply hasn't looked like a top 5 team this season. I think Tennessee's the 1, Texas the 2, Miami the 3, even though they're kind of getting whipped by VTech right now. I know people aren't going to like this. I think Oregon is the 4th best team. Haven't looked great. I still think Oregon's the 4th best team. We have not seen the Bulldogs be explosive offensively yet this year, and that could be a problem going up against this Bama defense. They looked good in the second half going up against Clemson, that Georgia offense, but that Clemson defense, they were dead tired with their offense giving them nothing. They looked horrible against Kentucky, and maybe that's just me overthinking this Kentucky game because I did take Georgia to pound Kentucky, but Kentucky usually plays Georgia pretty tight. They also had a bye week, so maybe this is just classic Georgia not looking good and then going to come out and give us a Georgia-like performance, but I can't do it. I haven't been impressed with Georgia. I think Alabama's looked a little bit better. That Georgia defense, they are legit. The Alabama defense, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people in this game. This is going to be whatever quarterback can lead their team down the field and get some points, and I think that's Jalen Milroe. I think he's the better quarterback in this matchup. I'm going to take Alabama in a close game at home, win this game by a point, 28-27 as the final score. Let's go take a look at some player props for tomorrow. We're going to really rapid fire through these because I got a lot more to talk about. We're going to start with Notre Dame going up against Louisville. Give me Notre Dame, the running back Jeremiah Love. I think him and Riley Leonard are going to have a big day on the ground against Louisville. And I really think Notre Dame needs to just give Jeremiah Love the ball 20-plus times per game. I'm not entirely sure why they just stopped giving him the ball in a couple of these games. He touched the ball 11 times last week, 60 yards and a touchdown. This guy needs to be getting 20 touches a game. He's one of the most explosive players in the country. I don't think we're going to see Notre Dame throw the ball down the field in this game, and I do think we're going to see Love and Leonard split about 40 carries on the ground between the two of them. So I'm going to take Jeremiah Love here, over 69.5 rushing yards as the play. For the second play tonight, Kansas State going up against Oklahoma State. We're taking the running back, DJ Gittens, over 94.5 rushing yards against OK State. Oklahoma State defensively this season has been a horrible sight to see. They're giving up 200 yards per game on the ground, and I do think Kansas State's going to be able to control this game on the ground. Kansas State's one of the hardest teams to beat whenever you give them a lead, and from what we saw against Utah with this Oklahoma State team, they're not going to be able to stop the ball at all. The numbers last week said that Kansas State gave up 38 points to BYU, but really Johnson and that offense and the special teams, they gave up 21 points by themselves, and the BYU, they just capitalized with special teams and defense. That was not the Kansas State defense fault. I think they're still really good. I think the offense controls the game. I think Kansas State gets off the field a lot. I'm going to take DJ Gittens here, over 94.5 rushing yards. He didn't break 100 last week against BYU. He's breaking 100 this week against Oklahoma State. And for the last play, we are going to be looking at Utah going up against Arizona. Micah Bernard to go over his total rushing yards. We took Bernard a couple weeks ago. We weren't able to put him down as a win because I couldn't find him to bet anywhere, but he did go for 182 yards last week on the ground. He's getting a really good matchup going up against this Arizona defense who's giving up 223 yards per game on the ground. We saw how good this Kansas State team did against this Arizona team a couple weeks ago. Utah has been a wagon so far in the Big 12. The defense has been one of the best in the country, and even without Cam Rising, this Utah offense has been able to lean on that defense and just run the ball the entire game, kill clock. score on these long touchdown drives. They've been so good, especially on the ground and the defensive side. Arizona, they were ranked in the top 25 against Kansas State. I don't think they're in the top 25 anymore, and them losing to Kansas State like they did makes me think they're even worse than what I thought they were whenever they lost to Kansas State. They looked really bad against K-State. I think Utah is better than the Kansas State Wildcats. I like Utah in this game, ground and pound like they do every game. Give me the over 104.5 rushing yards as the play there. And finally, we have 6 graphic plays to break down here. These are going to be short. We're going to start with BYU on the road against Baylor. And I talked about that Notre Dame game, that it made no sense. I took the uncomfortable side with Notre Dame. I'm not going to do that in this game. BYU is the better team in this game. BYU is at the top of the Big 12 standings. If BYU loses this game, it could be the end of their season. Baylor's a bad team. They lost to Colorado last week. They had every opportunity to beat Colorado. They could not find a way to beat them. BYU is going to win this game. BYU, they're a frisky team. They've got a good defense. I love their head coach. They can throw, they can run, they can do everything. They can play defense. Even on the road, I have no idea why they're getting points. BYU has been undervalued for the last 3 seasons. Football, basketball, doesn't matter. They're going to win this game outright. I'm going to take the points as the plays, though, plus 3.5. For the next play, we have Oklahoma going up against Auburn. Auburn at home, doesn't matter. Only positive thing for them, they have the home crowd, but that might not be a good thing because they might get booed off the field. They are horrible this season. They have no offensive line. Their quarterback's a train wreck. If they throw out Peyton Thorne in this game, they're going to lose this game by 21 plus. Oklahoma has their own quarterback controversy, but the Oklahoma defense is so good, and I really hope that Michael Hawkins kid is going to be starting in this game for Oklahoma. He had 2 late touchdowns against Tennessee. He looked really good. He was mobile. He can throw the ball. I don't know if Arnold's going to play. I don't know if Hawkins is going to play, but either way, Oklahoma wins this game, -2 as the play there. For the next play, we're going to be looking at Mississippi State going up against Texas. Texas at home, it looks like Arch Manning is going to be the quarterback today. Doesn't matter, him or Quinn Ewers. This one's going to be over in the first half. This is, I believe, the second best team in the nation right now behind Tennessee. And Texas at home, they've dominated opponents over the last several years, but they've scored 49-plus points in 5 consecutive games dating back to 2023. Mississippi State this season, they've been absolutely horrible. The worst team in this conference by a wide margin. They lost to Toledo at home by 24 points. They allowed 41 in that game. They lost to Florida, who is horrible, by 17 points, allowing 45 points in that game. Texas are going to put 50-plus points on this team. I don't think Mississippi State gets to 10. Give me Texas -38.5 as the play there. For the next play, we have Florida State going up against SMU. I really, really, really like what I saw to SMU last week going up against TCU. I said they're going to score 35-plus points. They scored 66 on TCU. This is a very explosive team. The defense does need a little bit of a work, but against Florida State, I don't think it's going to matter. The offense of SMU is too explosive. Florida State hasn't even scored 66 points on this season. And against Cal last week, they really should have lost that game. Cal kind of fumbled that game away. Take SMU here, -6.5 at home. And for the last play of the day, Oregon, the Ducks against UCLA. I think UCLA is very bad. I think Oregon is probably a top 5 team in the nation. I know a lot of people won't like that, but I love the quarterback. Oregon against Oregon State was the test for me. That rivalry matchup, usually a tight game. Not this year. Oregon dominated Oregon State, and I think Oregon State's okay. Oregon went into that game. They dominated them. They killed them. 25-plus point win. We should see Oregon put up another 50-plus points in this game against UCLA. UCLA against that Oregon defense, not going to be able to score. Give me the Ducks -25 as the last play of the day. Whew, all the games recap. Kansas State -5, Notre Dame -6.5, Illinois +18, Bama +1.5, BYU +3.5, Oklahoma -2, Texas -38.5, team total over for Texas if you want it as well. Texas first half if you want it as well. Mississippi State under points if you want it as well. SMU +6.5, Utah -8 going up against Arizona. Did I break down Utah? I don't think I did. I skipped over Utah. Anyway, I'll talk about Utah right now. Utah -8. Doesn't matter the quarterback. I don't think Cam Rising is going to play. That was kind of a fluke game for Cam Rising, only playing one game. I think just wanted to throw off Oklahoma State. But Utah, they're going to ground and pound in this game. Arizona, they could not stop Kansas State. Utah is better than Kansas State. Arizona, they're bad offensively. Fafita, he has a turnover problem. They can't push the ball down the field because their quarterback's throwing interceptions and fumbling every single play. Utah defensively, they're one of the best in the country. They win this game easily. I'm going to take them -8. They are at the top right now of the Big 12 with BYU. They're not going to lose this game. They're going to win this game very easily. So I'll take that Utah defense and the Utah run game with Wilson at quarterback. Utah -8 as that play. And then Oregon -25 against UCLA, who I think is really bad. Jeremiah Love over 69.5 rushing yards against Louisville. DJ Giddens over 94.5 rushing yards against OK State. And then Micah Bernard over 104.5 rushing yards against Arizona as the final play. Guys, that's going to do it for the NCAA football plays and props for Saturday, September 28th slated games. If you guys enjoyed the content, please be sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel below. See you guys next video, and thanks for watching.